Not only was it based in China, but it also was based in a resistance movement in the Bronx with the Young Lords and the Black Panthers in the 70s. And they overtook Lincoln Hospital for a drug detox center. And so there's a really rich history of community acupuncture and lifting up oppressed peoples and letting them have access to healing. And like y'all say, like integration is not optional. So if you've been through a change and you're feeling like your life is clunky, come to the Condor approach to help yourself start to put the pieces back together in a way that is going to help you live your bigger mission in the world, because it will.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Y'all, I'm so excited for today's episode. This is the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. You already know, you heard the intro. But I'm excited because I've got Amy here today. Not only is Amy a Condor Master Coach, not only has she come to Condor 8.6 billion times, but most importantly, she's been following her heart's promptings. She's been following her call to create healing spaces that are accessible without sacrificing everything who she is in the process. So, Amy, if you'll start by giving us a bit of an introduction of who's Amy right now. Who are you in this, we'll say, incarnation? And then we'll get into the amazing things you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Cole. So my name is Amy Bachhuber. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. And as Cole said, I'm one of the Condor Master Coaches, which has been a life-changing experience for me. And currently, I am focusing on creating healing spaces that are more accessible for people so that we can have not just high-level one-on-one services, but that I can start to create community around me. I live in a rural community, and so I am looking to create a community of like-minded individuals who want to heal and just start to create a group of people who are invested in their own healing to work together.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I love the center you just opened, and we'll talk more about it. But I remember you first talking about this concept and this idea, and I feel like it had to have been like almost 3 years ago. Like it was a while ago where there was like another potential building, or maybe it's the same one. And I feel like this has been a whisper in your heart, a consideration. What could I do? So yeah, walk me through, what was your practice? What is this new project that you've just launched? And then we're just going to talk it out, chat it out.
Sounds good. So I've been an acupuncturist for about 12 years now, and I've been running what everybody thinks of as like a traditional acupuncture clinic. I see patients one-to-one in my clinic. I run 2 rooms an hour, so each person has a half hour with me, and then they get to rest for a half an hour and they're on their way. I have been working specifically as a community care provider for Veterans Affairs, and so part of stepping into the Condor family way back when was that I was dealing with people with a lot of trauma and people who were using plant medicine in their trauma healing journeys. And I wanted to educate myself about everything plant medicine related so that I could help them. Fast forward, and like you said, Cole, there have been years and years where I've wanted to move into a more accessible, what I call a community acupuncture healing space. And that is because without insurance coverage for acupuncture, it's not accessible to many people. My one-on-one charges are in line with what the VA pays, and they're about $90 an hour, which doesn't allow people to have regular healing sessions to really make headway on their own healing. And so this community acupuncture model that I've moved into is something that I have wanted to find space for in this community for a long time. I've looked at buildings, I have run into dead ends, I think there have been about 3 different buildings I've looked at, and each one of them, as I was moving towards them, I knew what my big dream was and how I wanted to create them, but I just didn't know how it was going to happen. So I was trusting my own internal guidance system to say, oh, let me go look in this direction. Let me go look in this direction. And finally, after doing that and staying anchored in one of my mantras, which is, if not this, then something better, knowing that I have the ability to dream this into existence, but I might not know exactly what it's going to look like. I was blocked in a couple of ways, and I was just persistent in that mantra and in that belief that this was available to me. So when it showed up, I was able to be prepared to leap, and it showed up in a better way than I ever could have imagined. The rent is lower, the space is better, the community is better. And it was just a matter of trusting that process as I followed my true north, my heart's desire and my inner guidance.
It's that part, like that patience piece is so important. And I think that especially when someone gets that mission, that purpose, it's there. It's like the gas and the brake. It's knowing when to brake and when to gas and being ready. Like the image I just had in my head is like the F1 racing, right? In race cars, the brake is as important as the gas. And when you brake and when you gas matters. And so as you've been going through this process, what do you feel, especially now? Because you were actually one of, I think, the first two Condor Master coaches. I think it was you and Miranda were the first two. So a lot has changed in Condor, a lot has changed in you, a lot has changed in the coaching industry since all of that. So when you reflect back on the different coaches you've worked with and this desire in your heart and investing in yourself, what if you were to impart in someone listening that's maybe where you were like 3 years ago or even 4 years ago? What do you wish they knew in hearing that calling in their heart? Yeah.
Yeah. Having built a practice from grassroots scratch in acupuncture, I always anchored myself in the long game. There are a lot of shiny objects out there that we can all grab at. And when you grab a shiny object that's not truly aligned with who you are and your mission in the world, it just doesn't really work out without forcing. And so my perspective has always been the long game. Acupuncturists don't get hired by people. And so by embarking on that training, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was like a accidental entrepreneur. But unlike some people, I was able to embrace that just because of, I'd say I was determined for one thing. And I kept that perspective of this isn't going to happen overnight. It was really helpful for me to move to a small town because in a small town, if someone comes out and hangs their shingle out downtown and is like on the radio, on the TV, like really loud and like all the bells and whistles, people are actually suspicious of them and they don't want to work with them necessarily because they're like, who's this flashy person? There's 7,000 people here. Like, why can't you just be one of us? And so that helped me anchor myself in that long game. And I think it makes me more accessible as a healer as well. People they can feel that I'm not trying to put on a show. I'm just here to facilitate. I'm here to be the midwife. They have everything they need. And I just have some tools that can help them. And so I had to slowly walk into that and slowly build my confidence in the ups and downs that come with that kind of long-term gain in business and know that it may not look the way I want it to right away. But when I know that I'm anchored in what I'm supposed to be doing, if I just keep taking the next step and showing up, it's going to start to open up and work.
So good. And I love hearing what you're saying about how it was beneficial for you to go to a small town, because I feel sometimes that's like counterintuitive to what people think. I'm in too small of a town to serve in my community as an acupuncturist, as a coach, as a healer, as a Reiki practitioner, whatever, right? And so for you to actually say that, I think is really powerful, but it's that grass is always greener somewhere else. In larger cities, it's also massively saturated. A place like Austin, I can throw a taco and hit a healer or two if the taco falls apart. And
Absolutely.
so every area has different issues. And so I also found in the coaching space, and I'm sure you saw this too, you need to charge your value. You need to charge more. You're not charging enough. But I found very few coaches asked me more questions and who I'm serving versus and how I'm serving versus, oh, you're not charging enough. So walk me through like your mind process in maybe did you question yourself with certain coaches and environments? Am I doing the right thing? Or did you always just stick to it and be like, they don't get it. I'm going to figure this out?
Yeah, I have worked with quite a few coaching masterminds, and some of those have asked me to step into creating a really high level offer. And what I found when I got on the phone with people, my people, the people who are like me, who don't make millions of dollars, who maybe are entrepreneurs or healers, or the people who are speaking with me, they're not in a position to invest $15,000 or $20,000 with me. And it felt really incongruent with who I was to ask that kind of money for coaching when I was here to find people who really had the desire to change. And I don't think money should be a barrier. And so although I created the offer, and that's available if someone by chance says, hey, I want to work one-on-one with you at this high level, and I want to pay you a ton, I understand the value of investing in oneself at a level that feels like a little bit of a stretch because people show up. So that's still on the table, but it's not my main offering. That's something I'm not super comfortable just offering to everybody. And so I looked at it as having tiers and tiers of offerings. And even in my acupuncture practice, if people want what I call acu coaching and they want more talk time with me, I'll charge them more. If they just want regular acupuncture, they have another charge. And if they want community acupuncture, they have another charge. And so what I'm looking to do with this model is to make the base of my business this accessible model. And so that the rest of them are the icing on the cake. And
Mhm.
that feels aligned with me. And in the coaching world, like it's fortunate that in my scope of practice, coaching is included. So as an acupuncturist, I can charge somebody's health savings for coaching, but I'm not charging them 15 grand. I'm
Right.
charging 70 or $100 an hour, which feels in alignment with the service that I'm giving for a one-off session. I do ask people to coach with me long-term if that's the case, but it again makes it more accessible for people who are just working class individuals who want to work with somebody to help them level up.
Mhm. And if when you're in a smaller town, you don't have the same expenses as other cities too. And it's just, it's looking at what's the economics of where I want to serve. And I'm a big believer in the tiers. Like I'll tell people I don't work one-on-one. The truth is, someone has to come to me and basically pitch me on why they want to work with me. I'm always open to a conversation.
Mhm.
And then it's talking about what is your time need? What are we talking about here? What kind of accountability? Because there is going to be a different price point if you want to come spend a whole weekend with me versus a 1 hour call. Because the time, the energy, do I need to prepare for it? Do I need to come up with an itinerary or lesson plans? Or are we going to get on and strategize? That doesn't require me to plan anything, right? And so I think that when we let go of all the stories and ideas of other coaches, and by the way, most coaches that tell you to charge more, that's what they were coached and taught to do. And so they're just coaching. It's like that MLM model. I'm going to coach you because I coach coaches to coach coaches who coach coaches. Nothing wrong with that, but they don't have practical skills of building a business that is product based, that's service based, that actually has an outcome of I do this, you do this, here's what we get. And
Mhm.
so it's really recognizing when you're looking for coaches. Now, I have never regretted a coach that I paid for. I sometimes learned the lesson that more doesn't equal better. I sometimes learned the lesson that I got everything I needed out of that money from one session. So I didn't guilt myself into continuing because the one piece, I got it. And it was life changing and it was great. I didn't need the whole program. It wasn't, the rest of it wasn't valuable to me. So for you, what do you think is like one of the biggest things in this transition from not transition, addition, I would say, because you are still offering the like one-to-one sessions. What do you think of some has been like some of the biggest changes in mindset for you?
To let go of, there's an unfortunate belief in the acupuncture world that we should, in air quotes, be on the same level with medical providers, that we should want to charge Medicare, that we should want to play this insurance game. And that was trained into me in acupuncture school. And so by going grassroots and looking more at the history of acupuncture and where it came from, and offering this community model, makes it more of a people's medicine. This is not meant to be medicine for the elite. And I don't believe that coaching is meant to be only for the elite or only coaches coaching coaches, like you say. I believe that everybody can benefit from acupuncture, and I believe that everybody can benefit from coaching. Historically, in China, it was always done in a big room with a bunch of people. And acupuncture becomes really accessible that way, and you can do it very regularly. Community acupuncture really came from a drug and alcohol recovery model in the United States that was started in New York in the Bronx. And it was meant to bring healing to people who were addicted, who didn't have access to healing. And what happened were the Young Lords and the Black Panthers in 1973 banded together and overtook the 4th floor of Lincoln Hospital and opened up a drug dependency recovery center that had been promised by the powers that be, but wasn't happening. And so as a model of really grassroots help for a community, I think this acupuncture model is beautiful. One of the things that came out of that acupuncture situation in the Bronx was the National Acupuncture Detox Association also opened up a protocol that can be taught to non-acupuncturists to bring into communities. And so you just learned 5 ear needle points, but this has been brought into Mexico in places where the drug cartels are overtaking, and been taught to the people who live there so that they can help each other out. And I think that that is the mindset shift. Is I'm not here for people to come to me and say, oh, fix me. I don't want that. That's not what my healing job is. My healing job is to empower people to know that they have everything inside of them to heal, and empower communities to be able to heal together. And acupuncture is really beautiful that way, because especially in a community acupuncture environment, people are asked to, it's much like a plant ceremony or a medicine ceremony, where people are asked to go inside and source within themselves. And so I had to step out of that doctor as knower model and into trusting that people have everything that they need within them to heal. And so that this model is not only the people's model, but it's also what teaches people that they do have what they need. And when that's done in community, there's an alchemy that happens that's undeniable, and healing becomes bigger. And so that's really the mindset shift, is I don't have to know everything.
I love it. And it's so much, and I'm sure why we've always resonated anyway, is that was so much of what Condor continued to shift into even more, was sourcing between each other, where it's no, me and Ta are teaching you some tools, some techniques, some context, so that people know, have an understanding of how to speak to each other, how to communicate, how to collaborate, how to really interact and build community. Because that's always been the biggest thing for me, is there's this third intelligence that emerges from a community as a result of that connection. A new entity, a new identity emerges, and that has its own intelligence, and people get inspired to step more into their healer role because people pedestalize, it's part of how we're trained. But when you create community models, it's easier to not prevent, but it's almost easier to just put everyone on pedestals, almost, where we're going to, at least if we're all rise, we're going to all rise together, and we can work with it that way, versus there's one dominant source of information, of healing, of medicine, of whatever. Because I think that's so much where people end up disempowered, is they're looking for the teacher, the priest, the guide, the doctor to tell them what's wrong with them. And same in psychedelics and entheogens. What is the plant, the substance, the mushroom that's going to do my healing, versus this is another intelligence that I'm going to interact with, that I'm going to interface with, that we're going to learn together. Because yes, there's a place for healing alone, like in solitude. And there is a huge limitation to healing in solitude and alone, because we are pack animals by design. And people often see projections as a bad thing versus projections and reflections are a thing humans do. But when I can be in an honest place and understand my projections, what's reflected back to me is what can help me get my healing and my understanding of myself. So, as you started to create this model, what does it look like when someone comes to do a community or group acupuncture? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so a lot of it is I set a container just like someone would in a plant medicine ceremony. And prior to them arriving, there are some recommendations about how to arrive. This is a phone free, politics free, really talk free zone. I create the space so that there's some calming music. The lights are low, people have comfortable recliners to relax in. And I ask them to enter the space mindfully, like staying in their own lane, much like you would in a plant medicine ceremony. And I whisper and we talk very briefly about their intentions. So they are the one that sets the intention and they let me know. And I say, okay, we're going to work on your stress. We'll work on your shoulder pain, whatever it is. I put the needles in. It takes me about 10 minutes and then I go to the next chair. When I am sitting with people resting in the space, I put myself in this little awareness bubble, right? Like much like a shaman might in a ceremony where you're very aware of everything, but you're not really in anybody's stuff. I'm stepped back and I'm just aware of the energies flowing through the room. And it's very obvious when we say people are cooked when they're done with acupuncture, because there's this moment at which your nervous system goes, oh, I'm done. And at that point, I go and I take the needles out and I help them just reorient themselves and they're on their way. It's an interesting thing that even though we're not having a whole lot of conversation, the healing still goes really deep in that environment. And I think it's really a shared intention that's happening in this space because now everybody has been pre-prepped to enter the space in the same meditative way. And acupuncture needles in particular are great facilitators of dropping you into a very regulated nervous system, meditative state. And so even people who don't meditate just drop right in. And in that space, I feel like there's this alchemy that happens with the energy and community. I don't even know what the words are for that. I've thought a lot about it, but I don't think thoughts and words quite pin it down. And I'm not really going to pin it down. So I think that answers your question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that so often people will think that if, say, they've worked with plant medicine, psychedelics, master teachers in some capacity, and then they think, I want to be in a healing role and connect with community in my area. And they immediately go to, I should be a facilitator of psychedelic experiences, which for me is not, that's not the magic, actually. It's one piece, it's one mirror, it's one way to reflect. But like you said, when we approach any healing environment, and I say healing environment like when it's intentional, we're coming together for the purpose of bringing awareness to our own physiology, to our own spiritual body, to our own mental processes. When you come with the same set and setting, when you do that intake process to see where they are, that intention setting process, they enter the space of the experience, and then there's some level of integration. It's profound. And even in therapeutic environments and actual therapy, the therapists I know that approach it similarly get
Mm.
similar results with their patients and clients because of that intention that they bring to the table. And I still have the image from the story you were telling with the Lords and the Black Panthers and them taking ownership of, we're going to bring healing because we're not going to wait for top down support anymore. That never comes through. It's talking heads. There's no follow up to it. And I feel like that's where society is coming to again now on a deeper level, is that no one is coming to save you. And you can't wait for the grant money. You can't wait for the government assistance. You can't wait for, though there's people that it does help, certainly. When you have a call in your heart, for me, it's because you're the one getting the call to step forward. So it's like, what skills and strategies do you need to have a level of confidence, to have a level of, okay, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to take the next step, which you so beautifully said earlier of I have a vision. I don't know how to actualize it all, but it's there on the horizon. And now it's what is the next step? What's the next thing I want to know, do, be, or understand in this process? And so, one, I want to really actually say so that you can hear to anyone listening, one, Amy has relentlessly showed up for herself and what she wants to understand. And it's not easy because what people don't understand when you step into supporting others, it deepens your need in order to sustain and hold a group container, you have to deepen your own well of understanding yourself because entrepreneurship is a medicine journey in itself. It sounds like it's freedom and fun, but the thing is, when you're not making money, that's on you. If you have people you're paying, that's on you. You're feeling like an imposter. You don't know how you're going to figure it out. Like you don't have the luxury of just showing up and sitting at your desk when you have rent due. So I wanted to really say, Amy, one, I've watched you these past few years in particular, and I feel like we've been connected now for 4 or 5. Like it's been a while. No, it's got to be because you came to the first psychedelic space program that we did in Austin,
Yeah.
and that was 2021. But then we were connected before that, and so it's one, I want to really honor your commitment to continue to learn and grow because you do serve veterans. And whether it's veterans or BIPOC or queer communities or whoever we're serving, if there's something you don't understand about the demographic, like how can you go learn? What areas can you go learn? How can you go be a student again to continue to evolve that process? And I've watched you consistently do that to actualize this mission while still being committed to Amy's life and Amy's growth. And so I really, that felt really important for me to name it, say it, call it. And yeah.
I'd like to share a reflection about that too. I came to the psychedelic space program so that I could help serve, but also so that I could understand myself. Because I have used psychedelics all the way back since I was like 13 or 14 years old. And I did not have an understanding of how that had shifted who I was and how I saw the world. And so through the Condor approach, not only did I learn all these tools to help support others, those tools supported me directly in understanding how my constructs had been blown apart, how I had adopted different constructs than my lineage, how I was stepping into those constructs and creating a new life through that, through being able to shift into constructs that I wanted to have propagate in the world instead of ones that were putting on me. And in that process, I was able to create a business for myself that's in alignment with that. But it, like you said, it was not without that internal work. What I have found consistently over these last 12 years in business is that when I do my inner work, my business changes for the better, period. And I almost do not need to do anything else. However, I did adopt one thing that I think is missing, and you said it several times, Cole, in the manifestation or the positive thinking community, and that is actualization. We can have that dream, but without the practical steps to go there, it never happens. And so many people get that dream, and that for one reason or another, not to blame them, it may be a trauma response, it may be a lack of a belief that they can do it. They don't go through with the actualization part of it. And that is where the rubber meets the road, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. And that actualization piece, wouldn't everyone like to have more money and a better life and all of that? And it just, you go to bed and you wake up and so it is. It's, for me, it's who do we have to become for this mission and purpose we're called to do? The Cole that I was when I first met you is not the same. It's similar, but it's not the same. There's work I had to do for the people that I serve. There's work I had to do about understanding how racism was working through my body like my need for approval, specifically from Black friends, of if I don't do it right, or then I'm going to be this white woman on here, blah, blah, blah. Like I had to do that internal work to clean that up, to have awareness. And I'm still, and again, not clean up as a bad thing, clean up as into get clean, to have it tidy, to understand, to have the confidence to use my voice in places and spaces where I am not appreciated, I am not celebrated, and yet to hold my own space when necessary because of what I'm here to do. And that work is what was necessary so that I could be in a leadership role in a community that everyone doesn't look like me, that everyone doesn't operate like I do, that everyone doesn't come from where I come from. And it couldn't have been any other way, because it was genuine that I always wanted to help and be in a supportive role the way I am. It wasn't genuine because there were parts led by shame, by guilt, by proving myself, my own worthiness issues. And those have continued, and I am assume will continue as I continue to grow, show up at times. But now I know how to be with them. I know how to be honest about them. I know how to speak with them, for them, alongside them. So it's who I have had to become for those manifestations to actualize, which is that rubber meets the road, which is the showing up on the hard days, which is taking ownership when I unconsciously was a part of harm creation because of what I didn't know, because of ignorance. Trust and believe. And let me know if this is you, Amy, that there's times that I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like I could just live a cozy little life in not say anything and just enjoy my animals and watch my movies, because I'm actually very introverted. And if you look at my human design and my astrology, I'm a dichotomy in existence, because I have a big mission and purpose. I'm very tribal in my gates in human design. Everyone needs to win. And also, I'm very hermity. I like to be alone. I like to be around people, but not necessarily talking to them. Like these are all parts. So, what are some of the conflicts you've found? Not conflicts, but things you've learned about yourself that it's like, oh, like I know I have this, and this, it's challenging sometimes in
Oh, yeah.
this like path of becoming.
Yeah. I think the imposter syndrome, especially stepping into entrepreneurship, like, who am I to do that? I could just go work as an admin for somebody. I could, whatever. And knowing that I had something to share. And like you said, holding the dichotomy of knowing that I have this mission. I am a helper. I am a healer. And even saying that was hard for me for a long time, because it felt so woo to me. And it's not woo. It's not at all. It's very pragmatic. It's very down to earth what I do. And so for me to step into claiming that part of my identity and actually residing in it when I move through the world was a long process. It was a long process of learning really that the tools that I was using for myself and the learning that I was gaining, the wisdom within me, could be shared with others in a way that supported them. But it wasn't my job to do that either. And so having that drive be from the true place of service without the need to be acknowledged is a big deal. It's very hard to let go of that external authority and wanting that external validation. And when we as healers know that we have a mission, really, truly, that is the driving force to continue to go in that direction that you're being pulled. And as soon as we're trying to please someone else, it usually goes off track. And just being able to, like a meditation, notice, because it comes and goes. Every day isn't the same. Some days I feel on top of the world, and some days, like when I signed the lease for this new space, there were like maybe 4 or 5 nights that I just woke up and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I already pay like this much rent, and now I'm adding more rent, and I have to do all this remodeling, and nobody's going to want to go there. And all of the fears for me, they come up in the middle of the night. I just sat bolt upright in bed and was like,
Yeah, total panic. And I don't say panic attack, panic like when you realize the pressure
yeah,
on each new level, and it's how do I hold the pressure, not carry the pressure? Like how do I have the resiliency to be with the pressure, not break from the pressure, and still move forward. It is fascinating.
It's fascinating. And bypassing that fear doesn't work either. Positive thinking through that does not work. Although I can say, hey, fear, I see you, and I'm not going to let you stop me. That's it. And so feeling that and doing it anyway, and setting a goal for myself. And I had a very specific, I'm going to remodel this space in 1 month and get it going because I don't want to pay more rent without having revenue coming in. So when it came down to that level of things, the money had to make sense. It had to make sense. But in a small town, like you said before, rents are low. And so what is required of me is 7 people a week in my clinic to cover the rent. And I know I can do that. I absolutely know that I can do that. I just have to be I have to be available to be seen. And I have to be courageous enough to let people know what I have to offer, which means that I have to step into my value as a healer. And that is not easy to do. And that's what has, like, all the coaches, including you and Ta and the entire Condor community that I've had, that is the piece that I have gained from being a part of your community more than anything else.
I know how much everyone loves you, adores you, values you, celebrates what you're doing. And that being seen piece is so important. And people will think, I don't want to be on social media. It's no, you don't have to be on social media, but you have to be seen somehow, whether it's you're putting ads in the local paper, whether it's you're putting it on the billboards as flyers, or going to local events and setting up a table. But you must be seen for people to know there's an offer available. The beauty of social media and technology is that if you have something you can do digitally where anyone in the world can enjoy it, social media is incredible for that. But if you're brick and mortar and it's somewhere for people to come, then where you initially spend your time and energy may not be social media if they're not on it, because you need people to come to a physical location. And when you look at your hours and how much time you have to spend, like I look at my return on investment on the task. If I'm looking to get people to a brick and mortar, then I want to be either doing ads local so that they're getting pinged on their phone, or going to local events and setting up tables and actually meeting people. Because like you said, what is the mentality of the people you want to serve? If they don't want someone that's an influencer energy, and that's what you're pushing out on your social media, you will repel your local demographic. And so to even know that shows how much you pay attention and who you serve and understanding that piece. And like you said, if people want coaching and they want to do it virtual, like there's options to reach out to you and discuss, or maybe they're working with an acupuncturist or someone in Chinese medicine and they're looking for a coach that can help them integrate and understand what's happening as a result of those treatments, because they're going to a more medically traditional environment that is not dealing more with these spiritual, mental, physiological processes aside from, yeah, you could feel a little tired today. They're looking for the deeper esoteric or even mystical. Maybe their dreams are changing and they'd like someone to talk to about that. Reach out to Amy, y'all. Be like, hey, because we haven't even talked about yet about your Chinese medicine background as well, because it's something that there's still this compartmentalization of even Chinese medicine from, say, plant medicine and psychedelics and master teachers. And I think that by having someone that a person can go to, that you can put all the pieces on the table, you can put all the tools on the table and say, cool, if we want to build a house, let's analyze the tools, what ones we'd want to use. Because if we realize we have a hammer or a nail gun, and you're like, well, if we're going to put up the frame, I think a nail gun would be a better idea versus if we're going to hang a picture, nail gun's not going to do it. It's going to be too much power for putting in a nail. And so I love watching how you weave in Chinese medicine as well into this process. And one thing people might not know, and one of the first things that I loved about you is how much you love mushrooms. And I'm not talking about even the psychoactive psychedelic kind, but the adaptogenic, like your knowledge base is so vast with all of these different areas. And so, though I'm not going to turn this episode into about Chinese medicine, could you share a little bit of context of how does that weave in with acupuncture and coaching. And then also, if someone's working with psychedelics, maybe they've never even considered looking into acupuncture or into Chinese medicine. How could all of these weave together in an integration process for someone that may be seeking other tools and techniques that are working with plant medicines and entheogens and master teachers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, acupuncture is based in Chinese medicine theory, but Chinese medicine theory is much bigger than acupuncture. I would say that acupuncture is a people's tool that comes out of that tradition, and there's way more in the Chinese medicine tradition about how to live in relation to life. And so, it's really a deeply spiritual tradition. And what I find about all mystical spiritual traditions is they converge on a common truth. And each one of them provides a different conceptual model for you to talk about that convergent truth, which is really the truth of our being, which is something that we can't really name. So when we start to approximate talking about what human beings do in this existence, it's all words to talk about our experience. And so they all mystical traditions in that way point towards something common in that experience. And so having a coach who is grounded as a spiritual coach will help the person gain an understanding of that on some level. Not Chinese medicine may not be the right language for everybody, but because it's rooted in the natural world, if you can observe the world around you, most of the things start to make sense. For instance, wood is all about growth. And if you think about a tree, it grows upwards and outwards, but not only it up and out, it also grows down and through the soil. But wood could be a green plant, like a leafy plant, or it could be a moss, or it could be an algae. And but there's all this commonality in this growth that's happening. And so we can use wood in Chinese medicine as a metaphor for where are you growing? What is your vocation? What do you want to have your legacy be in this world? And how is that going to manifest? And what things are in the way? So what is blocking your growth? That might be not enough nourishment. That might be you're too dry and you're not like drinking water metaphorically. That might be you're in a really windy environment where things are blowing all over the place and you can't get any stillness. And so by using those metaphors, we start to know different parts of ourselves in a way that's not necessarily tangible, and it starts to inform people that their experience of something is real, not just what others tell people. And so they can start to tap into those energies, whether it be in an acupuncture or an herbal medicine session, because I do Chinese herbs too, or in a plant medicine ceremony. All of it applies.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So, y'all, as you can imagine, we could take this conversation in 50 more directions for 50 more hours and not even scratch the surface of what Amy knows and understands. And you can hear her knowledge base with all of it. So, Amy, how can people get in touch with you if they're like curious? And what kinds of things would you offer virtual? So, if someone's not available to come to where you are, and how could they get in touch with you if they just wanted to learn more because they're resonating with you right now?
Yeah, the best way to find me is either Facebook or Instagram. Amy Bachhuber, it's Bachhuber. Amy B Swell, so Beswell. And I have my bit.ly on there. So if you want to talk, I always do a free 1 hour call to explore whether we're a good fit. If you are somebody who wants to talk about my acupuncture models, you can shoot me a message that way. You can log into my acupuncture portal that way as well and book a free consultation, 15-minute call. If you just want to say, hey, I'm an acupuncturist, how do I do what you're doing? I'd be happy to share. And if you're somebody interested in coaching, that's my Be Swell Coaching is the name of my business.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see all of this as you put the pictures and now it's painted and here's the decor. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. Because like you said, in a long game, sometimes we also forget to stop and pause and be like, holy cow, like it's happening now. Like it's happened. It was happening back then, just in the beginning stages. But
Mm.
for me, I was like, I want to actually name it, celebrate it, be with it, because it's just as important to stop and look at the view when you're climbing a big mountain, not just focus on getting to the top or to the destination. That it's learning to appreciate every perspective of that mountain as you climb and the things you can see from there that you will never see again from that perspective. And it's such a gift to witness you and to watch you and to celebrate it. And yeah,
Thank you so much.
excited to see everything else you do.
Thank you for all of your support over all the years and your inspiration. And I'm just really glad we were able to connect this way.
Me too. And if anyone was listening right now that was thinking about coming to the Condor approach, they've been hearing things and they're just not really sure, who do you feel like the Condor approach is for? What would be going on in their life? What would they be hearing in their heart? Or what did you hear in your heart when you didn't even know what it was about? Because to be fair, the Condor approach was still a whisper, like you're talking about before you had your center. We could see it, we could feel it, but you were part of the actualization in my living room of this training, sitting at my fireplace, which was the first training. So, what
Yeah.
might someone be hearing in their heart and they're feeling unsure, but they're hearing the call?
Yeah. Trust your deeper knowing when this is right for you, when you're ready for change. And it's a beautiful and supportive and gentle way to go through the changes. And like y'all say, like integration is not optional. So if you've been through a change and you're feeling like your life is clunky, come to the Condor approach to help yourself start to put the pieces back together in a way that is going to help you live your bigger mission in the world, because it will. And you will feel supported, you will feel part of a community. And when we feel alone, we go into our negative thoughts. When we do this healing together, everybody is better for it. Everybody gets further together, like you said.
Mm-hmm. I got chills. Thank you. That's wonderful. All right, y'all. Until next time, be easy, be free. Hit up Amy if any of this resonated for you. Like she said, if you're an acupuncturist, hit her up. Be like, girl, what are you doing over there? Tell me more. This is the power of also this type of community, not just the community we create for others, but the ones we create for ourselves. So until next time.